I'd like to divide my presentation into sort of three parts, starting with where the world finds itself for the moment. And it's not just really development cooperation, even though, I mean, I am a representative of development cooperation platform, but also much broader, and I think a lot has been said about it already. The second part is where Slovenia stands in this process. And then the last part, why is it important to act at the local level in order to do something for a process that is very much global. I think before I start with what post-2015 should be, it's important to just briefly touch upon the world that we find ourselves today. And again, a lot has been said about this, but it's really important to grasp the levels, not just of globalization, but the levels of interconnectedness that we find ourselves in. The fact that there are no more clear divisions between developed and developing countries, because I mean, we have emerging countries, which are still developing countries, but they play a crucial role, not only politically, but economically. And then, of course, we have new problems that face all of us. I think it's easier to understand when we talk about things such as climate change or environmental degradation, because yes, this is something that affects us all. But then we go into a more delicate issue of equity and human rights. We usually think, oh, you know, this is issues that developing countries have to deal with. But yeah, I mean, just giving one small example, if we look at the way migrants' rights are in the EU, I think it's clear that obviously also the EU, who's a huge supporter of human rights, has a lot of things that needs to be done still. Now, having said that, you know, a lot has been said that the framework needs to be universal with global goals, and those global goals need to be adapted to the local context, because obviously not one size fits all. It needs to be limited in the number of goals, just simply to have simplicity and clarity. But I think the biggest change that needs to be done is this holistic approach, because it just simply, we cannot anymore say, you know, this is where development cooperation ends and global issue starts, or the other way around. I mean, the world, it's just not so much about, one is that we're just simply so connected that we cannot differentiate between those two issues. But the other one is that I think more of a switch needs to be done just to admit that we need to think globally. Because if I just give a simple comparison, 150 to 100 years ago, scientists, you know, we had a scientist and he used to deal with the issues of math, physics, chemistry, biology. So they had a very global sort of holistic approach to how they tackled issues. Today, the world is quite different. We're all very specialized. You know, you have a scientist who's dealing with the physics, but not physics in general, but the very, very narrow field within that you know, field. So what happens is that he can find an excellent solution to a problem, but he forgets that, you know, this small field that he's dealing with is just one part of the global picture. And I think this is the switch that we need to do today. Basically say, okay, wait, you know, just move on to a much more global way of thinking. In order to do that, obviously, the global partnership has been mentioned, and very, really important is to say that at the end we have a set of wonderful goals, but also ensure mechanisms in order to achieve them. We shouldn't really deal with all the issues, but that we need to go back and look at the root causes. I think this is the switch really that is needed, is to say, okay, not just say we need advances in the field of water or sanitation or climate change, but go a few steps back and say, what are the causes that are actually making us do all those things, are making happen all those things? And I think if we go down to, we can come down to a few basics, and those basics are the ones that need to be addressed, not the results themselves. I think this is a very complicated process, and it's much simpler to address just the results. But if we really want change, we need to address the beginnings and not the ends.